what's up, everybody? I hope you're having a great, what is this, Tuesday? Is this Tuesday? Tuesday night. I gotta make sure I turned your mic on. Is your mic on? Push that up. Boom. What's up? Is your mic on?
Boom.
It's up. There we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Tuesday night. Pastor Michael here. Gonna give you guys a couple moments as some people will be jumping on and joining us. Little Facebook Live action. My Instagram Live isn't working, but that's all right. We'll figure that out. I hope that everybody had a great day today. It's nice out, and tonight we wanted to take a few minutes and talk about how to live smart, if you will, in a moment of when there's economic uncertainty swirling all around. We see it happening everywhere, and so I've got Pastor Sam with me to my right. Pastor Sam has overseen so many of our financial groups for years, a long time here at Community Church. He's taught a lot of the Dave Ramsey stuff, knows a lot about managing his own money well as teaching people how to do their money from a biblical perspective. And over here on my left, Matt Beckwith, who is the owner of a successful financial company here in Hampton Roads and beyond, and has led a company and been in the economic highs and economic lows. And so we wanted to just tonight have a conversation. And if possible, I'm not sure how this is working with the production guys who are helping me out, where I'm going to see any questions that might come in. But if you have questions, feel free to put them on there. We'll try to get to them tonight. If we don't get to them tonight, we're sorry. That's pretty much how that goes. But we'll do our best to make sure we answer them. You know, I talked this morning a little bit out of Proverbs chapter 11, and I was just talking about how it's important that we don't trust in our money, but that we make sure that we keep our trust in God. And you never see a moment when it's obvious, at least in America, how many people trust in their money than when the stock market drops 30% in what feels like a week, maybe 2 weeks, but 10,000 points in a couple of weeks, and you realize, I mean, even us sitting up here, I know everybody's like, oh, that's reason to take a deep breath for a moment. That's impactful, and it really does cause you to take a moment to go, am I trusting God or am I trusting money? And so we want to talk to some practical things, and so maybe I'm just going to throw it to you first, Pastor Sam. Maybe just throw out some practical thoughts just in this moment, some scripture, some strength, how to make sure we're functioning right.
Yeah, I think even just thinking about tonight, just even in the season we're in, just praying and thinking about what people are going through, the emotions people are having. And I think the one thing to remember is what's really going on for you, not just everybody else. Yeah. I think we can easily get caught up in the emotion of what's happening around us and let that impact who we are and what we're going through. So you got to know your situation. I think that's important. Know your situation. And just this verse, I'll come back to this for a lot of reasons, but Matthew 6:31 through 33, it says, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For people run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And for me, it really comes down to starting off is, this is not going to sound practical, but it's probably the most practical thing I can tell you. It's a faith issue. Yeah. Like, it's faith. Good. Is do you really have faith? The biggest thing I can tell you is the most important thing is, am I trusting God right now? Do I really trust who God says he is and what he can do? Because if I do that, that changes everything else about the conversation. Yeah. But until I get to that point of going, do I really trust God in this moment and who he says he is and what he's capable of and the provider that he tells me he is, then the rest of the conversation doesn't really matter. Yeah. Because you have to start there. And I think that's where I would start with people. Just, what's your situation? Am I trusting God? And then from there, I need to start a conversation.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting what just popped in my mind, you saying that. I remember several years ago, after I had taught a message on tithing, and a lady in our church came up to me and said, she just had been a rough time, kind of a rough past that she'd been through and some things she'd gone through, and was on 100% government assistance at the time and barely getting by. And so she asked me, I don't remember the dollar figure, but so maybe it was $400 or $500. She said, I get this amount of money per month. Are you saying that if I trust God with my money, it means that I will give 10% of that money as my tithe? And I said, yes. It's not the amount, right? It's the faith. Is, do you really believe? And if you do, and take that action, that's when it kind of sets you up. Matt, maybe just kind of jumping off that a little bit, maybe just talk about, because in your world it's been rocking, obviously, and still doing well. But just kind of when the shaking does start to happen, not knowing exactly how it's going to play out, kind of how do you position? How do you make sure you think right? How do you just kind of help make sure when it comes to finances and economics, you don't let yourself freak out, if you will?
Yeah, and Sam made a great point that everybody is in a different situation. And so for myself and our family, what we try to do, number one, is just make sure we're living God's way and just be faithful with our finances. Because it's easy to let fear creep in really fast, but keeping that number one priority. And then also making some decisions that may or may not be what you would normally make in other situations, but not forgetting the faithfulness.
Yeah, that's good. Don't freak out. Fear makes us freak out if we're not careful.
Yep, exactly.
So, Pastor Sam, maybe let's jump in because I want to help you. We want to help you tonight. Maybe just jump in with some practical things and who we're thinking about right now, who we're talking to right now. Those of you're on this call or you're on this video, and maybe you are currently facing a job layoff. You are currently facing some real financial changes in your life, and you're like, what do I do? And one of the things when fear comes, the hardest thing for us to do is often do the simplest things. Right. We freeze up and we freak out. So maybe what's a couple practical or some things you'd share?
Yeah, one of the things that we do a lot of Financial Peace University groups, and one of the main things that they would teach there, and it's just super practical for anybody, it's what they would call the 4 walls. And really what those are is food, shelter, utilities, and transportation. And what that means is these are the things you have to have. And it's really coming to that place that it's nothing profound. It's what's a need and what's a want. And you may be in a situation right now where your financial situation is changing because of what's going on. And you're going, okay, what do I need to do? What's the wisdom that I can impart in my life right now for what's best for me or my family? And I would say, what are your essentials? What really are your essentials? And, we know if you have more time right now, Netflix might feel like an essential because I can binge for 6 hours on a show I'm trying to catch up on because I actually have time to do it. But that might not be an essential right now.
Right.
I gotta have food for my family and for my kids, and I've got to have a place for us to sleep at night. I've got to make sure the lights are paid. And there's things like that. So really focusing in on what are those. Most of us are in a situation where we don't have to really fine tune that to such a degree until something like this happens. And so I would say hit the reset button. What really is food, shelter, utilities look like for my life? Where can I be intentional with those things? And everything else just has to be flexible. Like, do I really need that? Do I not need that?
Yeah.
I have to work from there. I have to get down to the bare necessity, so to speak, get down to the essential things and see what really is left. I have to remove the excess. And it's hard to do. It's not always fun to do, but it may be necessary to do.
Yeah, I think that if you find yourself in that moment where you're feeling the squeeze right now and kind of on that, we have to make sure that we are budgeting, that you can clearly see where your money is going. And that's one of the things and we teach it in Financial Peace, but that's one of the first things that is hard for so many of us, and that causes fear. So when we don't know where our money's actually going, when uncertainty comes in, so tonight you may not even need to be worried, but because you're hearing things, you're worried because you aren't actually confident of your current financial situation.
Here's what I'll say: the situation most people are in, whether it's a financial hardship right now or not. What you were saying about the budget, and this is just true across the board. You don't know how you need to adjust your budget if you don't have one.
That's so true.
Most of us just don't have one, which is the problem in the first place. You like you just said, I love that. You may not have a reason to worry, but because you don't know how your money's being used right now, you just automatically assume this isn't good for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt, I really loved what you shared when we were talking earlier, just about kind of what helped your mindset, but at whatever level, just to help people that you would share, because you were successful and doing a good job when you were a young man before you had gray hair and your beard, working, and then a big economic downturn happened and things weren't so great. And so you've walked through some different things. So maybe what would you share that you learned in that some things you maybe could have done different or that worked? And then talk about how learning to have your mindset right when it comes to God and money really has helped you.
Yeah, so for me, when I went all in for Jesus with my finances, the biggest mindset shift that I had was when I realized that everything that I had, income, all of the possessions that I had weren't actually mine.
Yeah.
And it was all God's. And so when that revelation hit me, it was a big moment. And I was like, this isn't even mine anyways.
Right.
And so I think sometimes we can hold on tight to stuff, but not really realizing that everything we have is because of God. And so just thinking about living from a financial standpoint after the 90%, I think a lot of people kind of think of tithing and giving as a bill, as an extra bill.
Yeah.
But for me, what I started thinking about is that wasn't my money anyways.
Right.
So my finances started from 90 and not from 100.
Right. What did you find when you were coming out of difficulty, if you can remember back, which I'm sure you can.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but was there anything that you would share that was really helpful to kind of get you back to doing your money well?
Yeah, I think we could get real practical or general, but I lived a life where I had plenty of funds to not have to worry about where the next mortgage payment was being paid and that type of stuff. However, because I wasn't living my finances God's way, it still felt tight
Oh, that's good.
until I started living and doing finances God's way. I was still making the same amount of money, but all of
Yeah.
a sudden I had money in savings and it didn't feel tight anymore.
That's awesome. That's so true. Because part of what we've talked about with this whole thing is it's mindset.
Yeah.
It's more about, how we think about everything that's going on. And so when we do handle our money God's way, when we do focus that way, I read this quote today from Pastor Andy Stanley, and it says, fear invites you into self-preservation. And I've just been thinking so much, those of you watching this, you're a Christian, that if you're a Christian tonight, it's that we are called to be generous. And I love so much our church. We're giving food to hundreds in the community every week. We're taking care of the people in our church. We've got this COVID-19 relief fund that we're doing. It feels good to be generous. We're called to be generous. And the Bible says that when you sow seeds of generosity, then you reap seeds of generosity. But here's what I know happens is it's in these moments we start to freeze up if we're not careful. We start to tense up if we're not careful. And so we have to be honest and recognize, is this fear that's causing me to shrink back? Or is this wisdom because my financial situation is actually changing right now? That's a little bit different. What else you got that you would offer for us tonight?
Well, I think just playing off of that first, I think that's really good to think about that idea. Again, it is faith, right? God always responds to faith. God always responds to obedience. That's just who he is. And he's shown that himself to be true all through the Bible, all through the scriptures, all through time and history, that when he says this is best for your life and you go, yes, I agree with you, he shows up. That's who he is. He's a faithful God. And I think it's interesting for a lot of us when it comes to finances, going along with what you said, Matt, which I think is awesome, how you were able to, to say this is what's happened in your mindset, how that changed and how God showed you something different. One of the greatest ways to remove self-worry is generosity.
Oh, that's so good.
And most people don't think about it that way because it's upside down to natural thinking. But often that's what God does. And if you have a lot of this self-worry about, oh my gosh, you said I was holding on tight. The money didn't change. Your perspective changed.
Right.
And so you went from holding on tight to what you have to I want to give what God's given me away. And the whole attitude changed. And the results started to change. And I think just going off of that, I just wanted to point that out. I just think that's just good to know. Self-worry can happen, but that's fear. That's not of God. Generosity takes that away.
Yeah.
Generosity removes that. But just to get a little more practical too, I think there's some things that some people need to hear, and I've had a lot of these conversations over the years, not just in a situation like this, just people might get laid off from work or things like that in the past, and what I do, and there's a few things to know that you can do. Again, know exactly, have a budget, right? Have a budget, know what you need to pay, know what things maybe you're not able to pay because of the situation that you're in. And two things I would tell you right now, especially, and a lot of this with COVID-19 especially is being put out there, make sure that you know everything that's coming in from creditors or things that you have. because there's a lot of things that are happening right now where they're waiving
Right.
payments, they're waiving fees, they're doing things like that, and you don't want to miss something that you're stressing about something where they've already given you an out.
Right.
And so any information that's coming in, make sure you read it, see what's going on. Government, states are trying to do a lot of things to
On
help
that,
in this situation.
keep going there. But on that, I would really like to encourage us, don't run from reality. Because when we start to freak out, sometimes we'll just go, I don't even want to look at my bills. I don't know I'm going to pay them, so I'm just going to pretend they're not happening right now. And I was raised both my mom and my dad owned accounting firms my whole life. And I was amazed at the number of people who would just not open the mail
Right.
when they felt economic nervousness, and they got themselves in situations they never had to be in. So
Absolutely. So that's the first part. Know what's coming at you, to know what things you're dealing with. And then secondly, going into what you were just saying, Pastor Michael, is contact those people.
yeah,
Just ask, tell them, hey, here's my situation. I know this is my monthly bill right now. I'm just telling you, I can't pay this right now.
right.
What can we do? What are my options? 9 times out of 10, you can help fix it just by having a conversation and being proactive. But if you put it off, like you said, and just shrink back, it's all going to overwhelm you, and you're going to find yourself in a hole that's very difficult to dig out of. So know what's coming, information that's being available to you, and don't be afraid to be proactive. You know, we use verses like this in the Bible a lot, but you don't have because you don't ask, right? God would say that. I've heard over and over again stories of people in conversations like this said, I just called this person and told them, I can't pay this right now. I want to pay you. I literally can't pay you right now. What can we do? Well, we'll waive it we'll defer it for 6 months, or
Yeah.
we'll give you this payment plan for this long. And ask. The worst that they can say is no, but you're doing your part, and God's going to honor your faithfulness and your integrity.
Right. That's good. What would you maybe, anything else you'd
Yeah,
share
I mean,
tonight?
that's a really great point of not burying your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Because I actually did that myself. So, when the market crashed, really the mortgage market and the stock market back in 2008, I didn't want to look at my credit card statements. I didn't want to look at that. I knew I had to pay them. But when you bury your head in the sand, it definitely makes it worse. So just kind of taking an account of everything that you have, making a spreadsheet if that's your thing, not my thing, but some people are good at spreadsheets. But some way of organizing stuff. If you didn't do it before now, I would definitely say now is the time to do it. Jump in and start planning out your budget.
Yeah.
And just know what you got coming.
That's so good. Hey, listen, last thought, and then we're going to sign off for the night. The people of God are always people of integrity. And so if you're a Christian, just know this, that God is always going to bless us if we do things with honor and we do things with integrity.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we don't ever have to try to cheat a system when it comes to our finances. We don't need to look for illegal loopholes that maybe we could get by without getting caught. Because what that does is that is making a statement that we're counting on ourselves to figure out how to get through this financial situation and not counting on God. And so the right way to do things is always God's way, or God's way is always the right way. And so just make sure, as a bottom line statement, we think about this as we are in this season of economic, uncertainty. And I say that there's a lot of us in Hampton Roads, a big military community. We may not feel the any of the economic results of what's going on right now. A lot will, and I know that. But let's be people of integrity, and let's be people who trust God across the board. And let's ask, and let's do our money God's way, and believe He'll have a blessing. Any last minute thought you have?
I would just say, we are here to help as well, and we do have
Yeah.
resources. So go online to our website. There's a place that says need help. Maybe you don't actually need financial help from the actual finances, but you just need help me figure this out.
That's right.
We have coaches, we have
That's right.
financial coaches, we have resources in different ways. Let us know. I think one of the biggest things that can get in the way is pride.
Yeah.
Of us not wanting to ask.
That's so
us
true.
not wanting to admit it. Don't let pride get in the way. God wants something for you. We want to help you. That's what we're here for. That's what church is about. We're a community. Let us help you. Ask for help. Don't let pride hold you back. We're
Yeah.
here for you.
That's right. It's awesome. All right. We love you guys. I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great night.